like to call the City of Fairhope Board of Adjustment meeting. It's July 17th, and before we start, I'd like to introduce our board.
Brian Baker.
Anil Vera.
Kathy Slagle.
Frank Lamia.
Okay, thank you. Our first order of business is approval of the minutes of June 19, 2023.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Our first order of business is BOA 23.07 at 950 Nichols Avenue, VF Post 5660. It's for a special exception for use and appeals to operate a restaurant.
Thank you. Mike Jeffries, City of Fairhope, Planning Manager. So this is on behalf of the applicant, Aloha Made LLC, special exception to allow a restaurant located at 950 Nichols Avenue. The property is owned by the VFW. The property is zoned M1 Light Industrial District, which is, according to the zoning ordinance, intended to provide a suitable protective environment for manufacturing, research, wholesale establishments, which are clean, quiet, free, hazardous, objectable emissions, and generate light traffic, industrial traffic. And restaurants is a use permitted on appeal, subject to special conditions in the ordinance. On the left of the screen, you can see our zoning map. It has a B2 zone property, M1 property around it, and across the street is the R3 PGH. On the right side is the aerial. So as I'd mentioned, restaurant is an allowed use. However, it is not allowed by right, but by special exception, and has been is in table 3.1 and is only on appeal subject to special conditions. We have reviewed this application. Current use is the VFW post 5660, and the proposed restaurant currently uses the site as a commissary for a food truck. The VFW has agreed to allow the proposed restaurant to operate and use their commercial kitchen to cook in and serve out of the hall for seating. Now, the restaurant will also utilize the VFW parking lot during its limited hours of operation. And I want to be clear, there's no expansion of the building being proposed. The restaurant would occupy readily available space, and the entrance for the patrons would come from a side door located on the east side of the building. So no modifications, no additional rooms being built or anything, just kind of using the space that otherwise is empty for the majority portion of the time. On the site is kind of a mock-up of what the site plan is, drawn on top of the building. The furthest part of the building closest to the road is the VFW as a bar area, which is not going to be used for the restaurant. They'll be using the back half of where the hall area is. And I said on the east side, the right hand of your screen is a side door and also 7 parking spaces where the patrons for the restaurant would come in and enter to. There's an existing kitchen, office, and storage areas in the rear of the building. So the landscaping is something that will be reviewed at time of business license and required to come into compliance. The restaurant will have up to 36 seats available for outdoor seating, 36 to 40 seats available on the inside. Said not using the bar area. The total number of parking spaces is 19 off of its number of seats. Currently, there is 67 plus spaces for parking, and staff does not see a concern with does not see the parking as a concern with the limited hours of operation. The hours have been limited to kind of coincide with the VFW's needs and the restaurants. And here listed on the screen, there's 2 schedules of hours which the VFW has agreed to allow them to operate a restaurant, and that is during the summertime, a Tuesday through Saturday schedule, open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and then school time, Wednesday through Friday, open from 11 to 2 p.m., and on Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. So this is a primarily the lunch midday dining hours, not a nighttime come in and have dinner until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So staff recommends approval of BOA 23.07, subject to the following condition, is that the hours of operation are limited to those shown above. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer those on staff. And we do have the owner of Aloha Barbecue and representatives from the VFW here tonight that can answer questions as well.
I've got a quick question. So the hours of operation, that can change according to their needs. Is that correct?
Incorrect. So if the board so chooses to allow this use by right and subject to these conditions, these are the hours of operation that they would have to stick
Adhere
to.
to.
Otherwise, come back to the Board of
Here, they
Adjustment
have
to
to stay
amend
the same.
these hours.
And to also note, in your packets, you do see a seating plan, so it's limited to the number of seating as well as the hours. So this use would just be approving what is provided. This is a little not untypical or non-typical, but we are in I think a shared space with the VFW that, will be still using this space at other hours. So, we kind of want to let it happen, but nothing can really grow on this. You can't have a de facto Hope Farm operating here and keep expanding. So limiting the use to the hours and the seating is provided, I think, accommodates this.
Can I ask?
Sure.
Maybe I don't understand that. I thought when we grant a special exception, it stays with the property. So if like Aloha closes and a different restaurant wants to open there, they would already have the right to do because it's already with the property. Is that not right?
With the hours shown and with the seating.
Kind of the same
That
parameters.
is why this is a condition. We can approve these things with a condition. You could theoretically add a condition that it's only for Aloha Barbecue. If you wanted to see, let's say, they expanded and moved into another location. Another food truck could step right in if they were willing to do the same hours the way we've proposed it. But if you would like to see that come back to you, you could make this condition that approval is only for Aloha Barbecue.
And this doesn't change by doing this, it doesn't change the use or rights of what's already there, because I don't know if the bar is allowed under the M1, is it, right?
It is, there is something we do want to talk about a little bit that is a little bit of a gray area because we're adding uses. Under the non-conforming use is in the strictest sense, we could make the VFW bring everything into compliance. And if it was a restaurant buying the building and the VFW's functions were not happening, we'd probably be recommending that. This is kind of a temporary during the day thing. They're still going to be operating the VFW. The one thing we did kind of look at, Mike, can you go back to the aerial? Similar to a couple of other projects that have parking and the landscape requirements. 20 feet is supposed to be landscape on this street, and you're supposed to have buffers around parking areas. So the one thing we have discussed, we didn't get an answer from the applicant. You can see the parking on the right, the horseshoe kind of has some shrubs and landscape, but it may be is from that change in use. We could make a condition where the other parking lot had some hedges to screen the parking. That's about from the zoning ordinance and the tree landscape ordinance. That is probably one of those things that if we're looking at things that really doesn't meet right now, that's probably one of the most in your face. Now, and I don't know if anyone from the VFW is here to speak to that, if they're willing to do that. Certainly, if the VFW is going away and are selling half the building, there would be a lot of bring into compliance issues. Mm-hmm. This one is very limited in scope, so we didn't want to hammer a lot of those things. But the landscape screening of the parking is one that this was certainly done before we had those requirements, and I think that makes a big impact from just screening the seas of asphalt we have around town. So
We're adding.
Basically, we're moving the food truck into the building. So the food truck's going away.
it is a commissary, so you may see other food trucks there prepping. So a commissary is a location with the health department. All food trucks need one. They need a place to get fresh water. I don't know all the details, but it's a prep station. It's where they can.
It's an
start up.
off-site location to prepare, to restock, reload, keep dry goods stored, keep other things stored, so that way the actually operation out of the truck is the food materials, and they have to have somewhere, and not their house where they're pulling that stuff out of their garage, but an actual area designated for their off-site preparation and storage of items.
So they're gonna prep in the building and then sell out of the food truck?
Yeah, they have to have a place to clean up, wash their
Store,
equipment,
verify,
get
health
rid of the
department needs
gray
to verify
water.
you're storing meats and cool enough temperatures and things like that.
Oh.
So you can't ship all your beef to your house. You have to have that coming to a commissary, and those can be shared spaces in other restaurants. There's a big enough kitchen here, so you could potentially see multiple food trucks still using this as a commissary. That doesn't mean they can serve there. Just using it as a commissary to prep and leave for. But that is the intent. Aloha Barbecue does have a food truck they serve, and just looking for a place in the summer to get out of the sun was the kind of catalyst for this request.
Any other questions for the staff? Okay, thanks. If the applicant would like to step up and add any more?
You do not have to, but
Yeah.
welcome to speak on it if you would like.
If you'll come up to the mic, please, for us.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Raquel Fayupu, owner and member of Aloha Made Barbecue. But the only other, I guess, suggestion that we would like to make is the modification of the hours. It was my error, but if we could during school, the school year as well, just change it to the same hours, the summer hours, which is Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
So school time and summertime will be the same.
Yes. I apologize.
Makes it simpler.
So to just read that into record, that would be hours year-round will be Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
As staff, I don't see any issue with that.
Okay.
No, and, I think there is allowance if the VFW has something else scheduled, they dictate, hey, you can't have the restaurant today.
Correct.
And that's their internal, but this just limits the use for the lunch restaurant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And is anyone from the VFW here to speak about landscaping? Come on up. Would you please say your name and address for our records? Your personal, your,
Personal?
where you go.
Carrie Lambert, and I'm 104 Ann Street in Spanish Fort. And I'm with the VFW, I'm the facility manager there.
So I know we asked, and was there any discussion about some of the landscape out front?
Now, out front, there is shrubs there, and on the horseshoe part that you see, there's two big crepe myrtles that are humongous there. And there's a sign and a flagpole.
And the crepe myrtles are the city's street trees, I believe, outside the property line. But
I don't know, we always maintain them, the city's never touches them, so we're the ones that maintain them. As far as I know, they were ours.
Okay.
But
Anything outside that blue line is probably the city's, but we let people plant and maintain. We encourage that. But the parking lot in the image on the screen on the left-hand side, was there any discussion of just hedgerow or something?
I know they
in front
had
of that?
talked about putting in hedges if they'd done it, that they would put in the hedges on the front part, yes.
Okay. Between the VFW and Aloha, would y'all be willing to put that in a condition so that?
As long as we know the requirements,
Yeah.
like the minimum requirements.
Yeah.
Okay. I believe those are 36 inch or
To grow
48?
to, I think they're planted at 3 feet to grow to a height of 6 feet within 3 years.
That's the buffer, that's
That's
the
the bu-
buffer against adjacent properties. The
Right.
screening buffer, I believe, is only 48 inches or 36.
I think it's
And what,
36.
is it 4 feet? Okay, Ryan's done this before. I think it was 48
I
inches.
just got called on this on another project.
Because I just know, in front of us, there's nothing but the subdivision, they've got a big privacy fence that's across the street, that's the only thing. And then
Right.
Tony's Towing's next
Yeah,
to us.
and if you don't mind, I'm gonna just, this area here is where we're talking about, kind of screening that parking lot, so you don't see the.
Yeah, I know.
Cars.
Yeah, so
Or the cannon that's there.
if we could make a condition there, I would suggest a parking screen compliant with the city's landscape
Tree
ordinance. If anyone wanted to add that condition?
I just don't know if, I mean, I don't know, I know enough about it to be dangerous, I'll say, but I don't know enough to know what that entails, because it looks like that asphalt goes all the way to the property line. So where
So
would you be?
not on the east side. If you look, the property lines here jog. So the blue line, and we just have this property, but this is all the same parking lot.
Okay.
So here, there's already some shrubs.
Right,
You see the blue line, and here it jogs north?
Yes.
Yes. So the grass area between the asphalt and the blue line, there's plenty of room to.
okay, that was confusing, sorry.
Yeah, and would probably only be, a 3 foot, 4 foot area.
I just didn't want them to have to take up asphalt because we said something.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's not.
Yes, that would be
That would be
really
nice.
expensive.
Yeah, that would be a no on me, I'm sorry.
Um,
I mean, we're nonprofit, but that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
And I think if you just, instead of us trying to figure out heights and get specific, just meet the landscape ordinance.
As approved by the city horticulturalist supervisor.
Yep. And we can work with Jamie to make sure that happens. And I think there's plenty of species that, it doesn't have to be a high cost, but I think can be very impactful.
Yes.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against it? And we did get one letter in our package from Randy Niemeyer in favor of the project. Okay. We'll close the public portion, and do we have a motion and any discussions amongst ourselves? And I had a question. So we can put a stipulation that what we're approving is only for Aloha?
I think there is enough flexibility here that you could say that. There's enough with the uses, you can make any conditions per the zoning ordinance. Variances are a little bit, a true variance like to the dimensional requirements run with the land, it's hard to put stipulations on that, but a use like this, you can make that condition if you'd like.
So just kind of walk me through. So by doing that, it just gives us a little bit more flexibility, or the city flexibility, if they were to close down and someone else would come to us?
My thought here is, I don't know if that's necessary, because we have two things kind of guiding this: seats provided and hours, and one restaurant. So as long as they're operating, and let's say they do move off, is it an issue for you if another food truck comes in and does the same thing, same time period? That's not an issue for me, but if you think it might be.
So could they come back to us and say, hey, instead of being open from 9 to 3, we'd like to be open 9 to 6?
Now, any, regardless of who it is,
Yeah.
even if we don't put a stipulation that
Right.
this is limited to Aloha, anybody, whether it's Aloha or somebody else, wants to change the time period, or let's say, hey, we want to block this off and VFW won't be using this
Right.
space, anything that physically changes, adding seats or changing the time would have to come back to the Board of Adjustment.
So
You
we're
keep on,
limiting it to 4 o'clock, that's the latest they can open, until 4 o'clock,
10 to 4.
10 to 4, yeah.
you keep on saying food truck, but I thought this was taking the space and making it a restaurant. It's not, and then the food, it's,
The food truck's there today. So
Right.
tomorrow, if you want to stop by and grab yourself a barbecue, you can.
right?
They're moving inside. The difference between what we would traditionally see as a restaurant, it would be a separate space within a building or encompassing the whole building that you say, this is the food truck. I mean, this is the restaurant. What we're seeing here is common space of the VFW that's not being used during the day is going to be occupied in these hours by Aloha Barbecue. And then after 4, it becomes the VFW, so
Right.
quite literally, there will be shuffling of seats, and, if there's an event in the evening, the VFW uses that space. So,
But the
And
food truck.
to maybe clear it up, if Aloha Barbecue didn't have a food truck, they could come make the same exact request today.
Yeah,
That's
what I
it.
was
So,
gonna-
the food truck maybe threw in an element. Right now, they're just currently using it as their commissary, and now they'd like to use it as a brick and mortar type of establishment instead of the food truck. But if Aloha Barbecue expanded, moved somewhere else, and Bob's Burgers came in and wanted to use the same hours of operation and said, I'm ready to start this, and fit the time slot and the days, could fill that space in there the same way. There's no way, shape, tied to it being a food truck service or commissary.
and I think we have a safeguard here of the VFW. Anybody that comes in would have to work with them to make sure they're okay with the hours and operations. So we didn't suggest limit it to Aloha Barbecue, just kind of the scope and the time periods. And if somebody else comes in, and it works out, then they can move right in without coming back. But is that a-
If for some reason they leave and we open our own kitchen back up, is this gonna limit our times? Yeah.
No, because you're not
You are not a kitchen
you're not
restaurant.
selling out as a separate,
Okay.
you're still just the VFW operating as
Because
the
we don't open till
VFW.
3 in the afternoon anyway.
for your members?
Yes,
So
for-
you're not by definition, you are more a club, a
Entertainment
private
Canteen.
entity that
Yes.
is not open to the public for a restaurant service. This Aloha is.
Okay, so
They're
I just
open
wanna
the
make sure
door.
that it's not gonna affect our hours if we
No.
go back into the kitchen.
This only
No.
affects a secondary entity from
Okay.
coming in and occupying and using the space that we've been talking about
Okay.
tonight.
Right. Yep. Now, if you wanted to operate as a full restaurant, then we would look at that differently, but you're not. So
No.
It would not affect your normal day-to-day
Okay.
business hours.
I have a question. So a third of the building is the bar, and is that going to just remain closed? You don't have a liquor license, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
the VFW.
to-
We, the
does.
VFW, we do have a liquor license.
Oh,
Now, Aloha Barbecue does not, but we do. The front part, we do not open, our business doesn't open till 3, Monday through Friday, and then it's open from 3 to 8, and then on the weekends, it's 2 to 8. But it's just the canteen, the front part, not the back part.
that's just for members.
Yes, ma'am.
So could someone go get the barbecue and come get a beer at your place at 3 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay.
Just like they could walk to McDonald's and grab it and
Right.
come
If
back
there's
in.
if they have a representative with the VFW with them, if they have a member of our post with them, or they walk in with somebody, that's a member of the post, they can, yes.
Right.
But no, just off, yeah.
Thank you.
And there's a lot of things that happen within a private club that, does not meet our zoning ordinance. Distinctions for restaurant, bars, entertainment venues, all those good things.
Do we have a motion on the table?
So I move to approve.
Just,
Based on staff recommendations?
Yes.
And the adjustment of the
And
hours?
the adjustment of the hours, yes.
Okay.
would you consider adding the second condition that we discussed but is not in the staff report about landscaping?
What specifically are you asking them to do?
A landscape buffer along the parking area, the north side of the property, to be approved by the city horticulture supervisor.
Okay. I guess I'm just, that's on a separate piece of property though, isn't it? So like, we're
All
tying
this
the
use-
special use to one property, but making a requirement on a different parcel.
Parking is there to meet both, so it's parking, standalone parking. Only places we do have those are actually zoned for parking. So it's there for this use is what we've kind of made the stance. So there's no parking lot that just, you can't come in and just put a parking lot in zoned areas unless it is the P1? or
P1.
P1
Yes.
district. So it is for the use. The numbers work for restaurant and the BFW to have that space.
It's essentially an off-site parking agreement, just happens to be right next door in a connected parking lot.
I understand that, I'm just like, but we're tying the restaurant to this parcel and there's a separate parcel next door. And if it was owned by somebody else, could we do the same thing?
Yes, sir.
If they had a shared parking agreement, like if they were using that space to meet their parking requirements, absolutely.
But
Yeah, we did that. We actually did that, if you,
you said that in the report there was 67 parking spaces and they only needed 19 or something like that, and
Correct. And there is 7 located on the east side, and I think 9 or 10 located in front of the building, which is still a couple spaces shy. And with the VFW being open for an hour during the times, they didn't draw out and say these are reserved, these certain spaces for you. So it's a shared amongst them all. And with what the VFW generates, with what the restaurant is and the parking that's there, there's a pool of parking that staff wasn't concerned there being a short of parking.
I don't have a strong opinion about it.
No, that's good questions, and we looked at that.
and
They're in
if
overview
you
as
really
well.
want to get into that discussion heavy, when Starbucks was approved through the planning commission and the Equal Rouge, still not built, but Equal Rouge Shopping Center, that one, not Equal Rouge, Eastern Shore Shopping Center, that was a separate piece of property floating in the middle of the parking lot, but that was we had that discussion ad nauseum. And one of the challenges in that one was they could not meet our zoning ordinance for parking and meet the tree ordinance. It's built 70 years ago. So it was kind of a compromise on what to do to try to meet the best of both goals. And that's kind of what we're suggesting here. If you really go with a tree ordinance, every 12 parking spaces has to be a tree island. And, we don't want to do, we're not proposing that at this time. Maybe if we can just screen it from the street and look at that, I think that's
Frank, it's your motion, so you.
I'm still, so you're gonna make them, what you're proposing is to do what is in the landscape ordinance.
But on your, Mike, it says landscaping will be reviewed at time of review for business licensing and be required to come into compliance. Doesn't that cover this?
Yes, ma'am. We were going to review it at time of business license as well, but with it coming in for a special use, coming to the Board of Adjustment, letting them know up front what exactly is going to be required. We didn't know if you guys would want tall overstory trees, if we started discussing it instead of just a row of hedges. So you can dictate exactly what it is that we're looking for now.
Okay.
A limiting factor here of if we just say parking in this condition, that kind of gives us what we're looking for, as opposed to we're debating on putting a tree every 12 parking
Correct.
spaces and meeting the full.
Kind of helps solidify the exact location and requirements of where the landscaping is going to go for the additional use.
And we've spoken with Aloha certainly, but they're just communication, see if that's an option, because we didn't get an answer by the time we got to the meeting, so.
Well, trees along Nichols, or some kind of landscaping along Nichols that helps buffer the parking from the residents across the street is certainly, that's the biggest bang for the buck.
Right.
I don't know that putting trees out in the middle of these parking lots is gonna help you much.
And why I referenced the certain section of the tree ordinance, because Nichols is one of those streets in the city that actually has a 20-foot landscape requirement and what should be done within that area. That actually might, if we say meet that requirement, it actually might require moving some asphalt and things like that. We don't feel this use is enough to do that, but specifically, what I would propose as the condition would be to meet the parking screening requirements of the landscape ordinance. That is
along
limited to
Nichols.
shrubs.
Yeah, along Nichols.
And that's, the ordinance says it's only from public streets, screening from public streets. So that's, we're just leaving that to meet the landscape ordinance would, I believe, accommodate that.
Well, I'm certainly not opposed to that. I mean, there's no landscaping along there now.
Right.
So if you wanna, I mean, what do you think?
Just maybe amend your
Yes.
approval.
Right.
Amend the motion to include a second condition for screening of the parking lot in accordance with the City of Fairhope landscape ordinance.
That would be fine.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, all in favor, we'll take a roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
Thank you. Do we have old and new business? Do we have a meeting for next month?
We do not. We did not receive an application, so last month of our summer, we're off.
Okay, thank you. And have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. See y'all in 2 months.